Welcome back to Wars and Conflicts of the World by HistoryGuide.com. We recently posted an article on our website, HistoryGuide.com, about the reported, alleged, possible actual peace deal between the United States and Iran that may end the current Iran war, at least temporarily. So this is our report on this, and it is an opinion and commentary report. So not just straight up facts, but a little bit of opinion, obviously backed by facts. So here we go. Trump's Iran ceasefire deal, is it good or not? Current events, May 24th, 2026. The newly announced ceasefire agreement between the United States and Iran is being promoted by the Trump administration as a diplomatic breakthrough that will stabilize the Middle East and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. In reality, however, the deal increasingly appears to be weak and a badly negotiated settlement following a war that the administration itself helped escalate without a clear long-term strategy. Reminder, the Strait of Hormuz was open prior to February 28th, when the war began. President Donald Trump announced on May 23rd that an agreement between the U.S. and Iran has been largely negotiated, with additional details expected soon. The proposed arrangement reportedly includes reopening the Strait of Hormuz, easing the American naval blockade against Iran, and beginning a new round of negotiations regarding Iran's nuclear program. But critics of the agreement, including many conservatives and pro-Israel hawks, argue the deal effectively rewards Iran after months of costly conflict. I do not consider myself a hawk, but I would agree that this does not sound like a great deal so far, based on what we know. Reports indicate that Iran may retain portions of its nuclear infrastructure, maintain much of its ballistic missile capability, and continue supporting regional proxy groups such as Hezbollah and the Houthis. Hezbollah, of course, is in Lebanon. The Houthis control part of Yemen. If those reports prove accurate, then the U.S. will have spent months fighting a dangerous regional war, only to return to a situation remarkably similar to the one that existed before the conflict began. In addition, multiple reports of shortages in America's arsenal of high-tech missiles puts the U.S. military at a disadvantage if hostilities renew or other military challenges arise around the globe. And again, it has been reported that China is paying a lot of attention to what's going on and keeping track of how many missiles we use. And, that is the real problem here. What happens when we get into, not if, a near-peer conflict with a country like China or Russia, or even North Korea? To continue. The Trump administration's handling of the Iran war increasingly resembles a pattern already seen in other recent military American operations. The administration launched aggressive military action without a clearly defined or achievable political objective or a realistic endgame, at least to the point where they talked about it, which they have not. Early American and Israeli strikes inflicted serious damage on Iran, but they failed to collapse the Iranian government or eliminate Iran's ability to retaliate militarily. That much has been very clear. Instead, Iran responded with missile attacks, naval threats in the Persian Gulf, proxy warfare across the Middle East, and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The resulting disruption to global energy markets created enormous economic pressure internationally and placed Washington under growing pressure from allies and financial markets alike, i.e., gas prices have gone through the roof in the United States, even higher in Europe. Now President Trump appears eager to secure almost any ceasefire deal that allows the White House to claim victory and reduce economic instability before the political situation worsens further. Republican members of Congress are facing an increasingly hostile electorate heading into the November 2026 midterm elections, and this war and the higher cost of living that goes with it are very unpopular with the GOP voter base. And just a reminder, a lot of the GOP/MAGA electorate was very, very much against continuing or expanding the so-called forever wars that the United States has been involved in, last couple of generations. So they have a good point there, but also President Trump has gotten us into multiple military conflicts across his 2 terms so far. A lot of his voters are not happy with that. The problem for America and the hope for an ongoing peace is that Iran likely interprets this agreement not as American strength, but as American exhaustion and impatience. Again, think of the missile shortage issue. Tehran survived the military campaign, maintained regime control. We killed off the old leadership, but the new leadership is the same basic format and just younger and possibly more hardline. Iran also kept much of its military infrastructure intact and may now gain sanctions relief and renewed oil exports in exchange for promises that remain vague and difficult to enforce. Equally troubling is the apparent lack of clarity surrounding Iran's nuclear program. Some reports suggest Iran may eventually dilute or surrender portions of its highly enriched uranium stockpile, while others indicate the issue has largely been postponed for future negotiations. Either of those situations is really, really bad, since one of the stated goals was to eliminate Iran's nuclear program. And again, that's one of the stated goals as to why the U.S. intervened in the 2025 12-day war, in which Israel and Iran exchanged missiles and drone attacks, etc., and the U.S. conducted pretty severe strikes on Iran's nuclear program. Again, that was a precursor to the current Iran war. This ambiguity alone highlights the weakness of this agreement. Meanwhile, America's regional allies are increasingly nervous. Israeli officials reportedly remain deeply concerned that the deal leaves Iran's regional proxy network largely untouched. Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Iranian-backed militias in Iraq all remain active threats. And the Iraqi Shiite militias, which are proxies for Iran, have been, flinging missiles and rockets and drones at all of America's allies and American forces in the Middle East as well, backing up their buddies in Tehran. The broader strategic lesson may be even more damaging. Once again, the United States demonstrated overwhelming military power, but uncertain political planning. This is a pattern we saw in American wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Yemen, among others. Washington escalated rapidly, imposed a blockade, launched strikes, and risked a major regional war. Well, it really is a major regional war, only to eventually negotiate toward terms that resemble a modified version of the status quo, or, again, in the historical case of Afghanistan, outright defeat. Again, the examples here that the U.S. gets into these things without a real clear endgame, and Afghanistan, of course, is similar to the Vietnam conflict in that a long, super long war that ended in basically defeat for the United States. For Iran, survival itself will be viewed internally as victory. In effect, the Islamic Republic regime will emerge stronger as a result of this war, based on this bad peace agreement, as reported. The ceasefire may temporarily reduce tensions and stabilize oil markets, but unless the agreement actually dismantles Iran's nuclear ambitions and weakens its regional proxy network, this conflict is unlikely to remain over for very long. Instead, the current deal may simply become another pause in the decades-long confrontation between the United States, Israel, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. In other words, this sounds like a bad deal for the U.S. and a bad deal for Israel, and likely a bad deal for the entire world because it will probably end up resulting in another conflict later this year, next year, the year after, whatever. And again, the economic situation around the world will be upended once again, and chaos will ensue. And, of course, people will die. U.S. military equipment and stocks will be used, lost, and American lives will be lost as well, as of course, whoever is in the way of the Iranian retaliation and in the way of their proxy forces. Again, not a good situation. A peace deal would be good, but only if it really solves the ongoing issues. From what we understand so far about what's been reported, this alleged peace deal does not do that. All right. This is War and Conflicts of the World by HistoryGuy.com, signing off. If you like our content, our articles or podcasts and or our videos, which are on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And yes, please comment, whether you agree with us or not. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Take care.